Awesome. Hello. This is what we're going to try and do. My name's Simon and you are?
Chip.
Chip. Nice to meet you, Chip. Hi, Chip. Wonderful. Now, Chip, this is the plan. Have you ever seen these before?
Never in my life.
They're very old. These are Chinese coins. People nowadays use them as good luck tokens, that kind of thing. Just give them a pull, make sure they don't come off. It's a good twinning action you've got there. It's well practiced. So this is the plan. I've got 3 on there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, do you know why they have a hole in them?
No.
No, it's for peeking. Peeking! No, sorry, it's my favourite joke. The actual reason is because the Chinese didn't invent pockets. Pockets are a Western invention. So they put their coins on a ribbon to go around their neck, around their belt, or whatever. That's the actual reason. But obviously, if you're a pickpocket in China, make things quite difficult because there were no pockets to pick. So they have to do something else. Can you put your hand up for me? Nice and flat. Perfect. So you used to do something that looked like that.
Ooh!
It's cool, right? It's pretty cool. Okay, we'll try it again. Well, nearly dropped one. Just pinch hold of those 2 for me. Pinch them nice and tightly. You got them?
Yeah.
Yep. There's another one that comes off there like that.
What?
I'm super confused. And you can check that they are real. There's no gaps, no holes in them or anything like that.
Chocolate.
No, all good. See if I just give a little rub there. See that one comes off there like that. Which is kind of cool. And see if we can get back on again. Just a little tap there. Basically.
Wow!
The ribbon just there like that. If I grab these, we have 2 here. Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll put your hand in. I'll put your hand in a nice tight fist. Brilliant.
Okay.
And turn your hand over. Wonderful. Now, Chip, are you aware of the magical properties of the gangster fist bump?
No.
Okay.
I'm not aware. Absolutely.
Okay. In a second, Chip, we're going to do a gangster fist bump.
Okay.
If my terminology is correct, it is going to be well good in it blood. Okay. So are you ready? Here we go. Boom! Did you feel the magic?
Yes, I did. Felt it right through.
I bet you did. Did you feel the point when mine vanished off the ribbon?
What? Don't tell me that this with my hands.
Have a look. Check it out.
What? That was amazing.
That's Party Tricks, guys! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Party Tricks with me, your host Simon South. I'm here obviously talking to you about the history of magic, where it all came from, some of the big players, some of the people that are important in our genre, and those that you might have heard of, you might have seen of, and all that kind of awesome goodness. And obviously just a trick there with Chip, who's from another show on here called the Midnight Girls, I believe. So yeah, go and check them out as well, they're really, really nice, so go and check out their show. Now today we're going to be talking about an absolute legend of British magic, and that is Mr. Paul Daniels. Now, obviously Paul Daniels had a TV show, everything possible Paul Daniels had from the 70s onwards. He did an incredible job. He was born on the 6th of April 1938. So when he died, he was 77, I believe. But yes, his full real name, because his real name isn't Paul Daniels, as real as that actually sounds. His real name was Newton Edward Daniels. Newton Edward Daniels. I'll get it right eventually. So that's what his real name was. And he was a member of the Inner Magic Circle with a gold star, which is the highest accolade you can get to be part of the Magic Circle. And through his career, he was awarded every single award that the Magic Circle have to offer. And he's the only magician ever to actually achieve this. After completing his education in Yorkshire and having his first job, he was a junior clerk, which is a bit of an odd one. He was a junior clerk in the Treasurer's office. He was sent to be a part of the 1st Battalion Green Howards to do his national service, which is World War II. With this he was posted over to Hong Kong, and then when he came back, he trained to be an accountant. Oddly, yeah, who'd have thought it? Paul Daniels, the amazing magician with his cups and balls and everything like that, he was an accountant when he came back for his national service. It's a really odd little thing. So apparently his stage name Paul, he borrowed from his first son, because his sons are Paul, Gary and Martin. Martin has gone on to be a magician as well. I've met Martin a couple of times. Really, really nice guy. So he borrowed his name Paul from his son Paul, saying that the people on stage used to call him Ted, but Paul sounded better for business. Which, okay, fair enough, yeah, and obviously he's a household name, or definitely was, and everyone knows who he is and all that kind of thing. So his interest in magic began at the age of 11, when during a holiday he read a book called How to Entertain at Parties, and he began performing magic as a hobby, and occasionally performing at youth clubs, parties, and all that kind of thing. And apparently he did his show for fellow servicemen during his national service as well. Again, quite a relationship with the same sort of thing happened with Di Vernon that we talked about last week. Di Vernon did during World War II. He took his show around all the different army bases, national bases forming for the troops, and Paul Daniels did the same thing here in World War II. So that's an interesting little thing for you there. So when he returned from his national service, he continued to develop his magic career by performing in clubs, and in the evenings and in the day he actually owned his own grocery shop. So he actually owned his own grocery shop and worked in there during the daytime. At night time, developed his magic act performing in working men's clubs and places like that, nightclubs, cabaret bars, to put together his old magic show, which is kind of cool. And at one point, he did work with his first wife. He wasn't always married to Debbie McGee. His first wife, Jackie, they worked as the Eldarnies, which is an anagram of Daniels. So yeah, it's quite funny. And it was while working at the clubs that he came up with his long-running catchphrase, which, as we all know, is "you'll like it, not a lot, but you'll like it," which is you'll like this, not a lot, but you'll like this. Apparently he came up with that to deal with a heckler. So someone was heckling him on the spot and he didn't know, so he's like, "Oh, you'll like this, I mean, not a lot, but you'll like it," and then it developed from there, and then it ended up being his number one catchphrase that he did, which is amazing. A magician with a catchphrase is something that you don't really see, especially nowadays. It's a very odd concept to have a catchphrase, especially as a magician. We're not like sitcom stars or anything like that, but it's something that associates, as soon as you hear that, you think of Paul Daniels. It's a great little thing. So yeah, an amazing turning point for Paul Daniels, as I said, was in 1969, which was right at the start of him going onto TV and stuff like that in the 70s. So in 1969 he was offered a summer season in Newquay, apparently, and someone that saw him performing in Newquay suggested that he go and do this television debut on a television programme that a lot of older people will know. I hate to say older people, but it's true, called Opportunity Knocks. So yeah, Opportunity Knocks in 1970s, Paul Daniels did that, and he came second. It was a big, massive talent show, kind of like Britain's Got Talent, but with people that actually had talent. So people coming on and doing like silly, tricks or singing or magic or whatever, loads of other different things. And at the end of each show there was a winner, and Paul Daniels came second, which is kind of cool. And a producer actually watched that and saw that show and offered him a slot on TV. So he gave him a regular spot on a show compared by Bernard Manning, which was called the Wheel Toppers and Shunters Social Club, and it was on Granada Television. There's a cool, weird, interesting fact. Worked with Bernard Manning. Obviously, it turns out as well that Paul Daniels was a member of the Conservative Party and had lots of views on that kind of aspect as well. Obviously, this is a magic show, we won't get into that. But interesting little thing. So in 1978, Daniels was given his own Sunday night show called the Paul Daniels Blackpool Bonanza. Which I'm guessing was in Blackpool, would be obvious. His first series for the BBC was called For My Next Trick, where he performed with loads of other magicians on the bill, and he had a singer on as well called Faith Brown, and the whole show was kind of like Paul Daniels would introduce loads of other different acts, and obviously they had the singing midway through because there's only so much magic even magicians couldn't get through. So he used to have lots of different acts on, and it sounds really, really like an interesting show. And this led to him presenting his own series, which, as we all know, was the Paul Daniels Magic Show. Paul Daniels Magic Show ran for 15 years, the longest running magic show on television to ever be existing. That ran from 1979 till 1994. That's a ridiculously long time to have a magic show. I mean, think about it this way as well. I currently do a thing called Magic Mondays. Magic Mondays, every Monday I try and come up with a new trick. Twice now I've unfortunately missed it due to other commitments and things like that. I've not had the time to film it. But just for 1 year I've been trying to do a new trick every single Monday. Something bizarre, something interesting that's not to do with cards, just a fun trick. Okay, that's 52 tricks. Paul Daniels had to do this I got to come up with a whole new show every Sunday for 15 years. That's at least, 5, 6, 7 new tricks, every single one. He must have got through so much material. It was unreal. I'm having trouble finding 30 seconds of new fun goodness to do every Monday. That's mental. Obviously it was split down into loads of different things. So as well as it being big massive shows and big massive illusions, the show also had a section called the Bunko Booth, where on the bunker booth, Paul Daniels would explain certain cons and certain scams that people are using, like the Find a Lady with the 3 cards. He'd explain how that works so that people wouldn't get scammed. I'd also do something about mind reading and mentalism, and trying to figure out whether, trying to look at the science behind it and trying to make it sound a bit more cool. So yeah, like it's just unbelievable that this existed for as long as it did. It was absolutely amazing. So obviously during this, he also starred in his own stage show called, quite plainly, It's Magic. Which I'm definitely sure I've heard Paul Daniels say many times. So yeah, it was at the Prince of Wales Theatre from 1980 till 1982, and at the time the show was the longest running magic show ever staged in London. So yeah, he's definitely, at this point, he's a star. He's doing amazingly well. And by this point, he was working with his future wife, Debbie McGee. And Debbie McGee actually first worked with Paul in 1979 in Great Yarmouth. So there you go. In 1987, he hosted. Oh, this is an interesting one. In 1987, he hosted a controversial Magic Halloween special, where he wanted to replicate a Harry Houdini escape. I actually watched this on the old YouTubes, and it was on a TV show as well, talking about things that are a bit it was all right in the 80s or something like that. And basically he's done this whole TV special for Halloween, then at the end says he's going to replicate Harry Houdini's escape. So he's got an Iron Maiden, which is like a coffin with loads of spikes in it. So the idea is that he's going to get in the Iron Maiden, and he's going to try and escape from the Iron Maiden, and he's got, a minute to try and escape from the Iron Maiden, and if he doesn't do it, then the spikes will kill him. That's the idea. And he doesn't escape. So the end of the show is him in this Iron Maiden, and after the minute, nothing happened. The curtains just close, and they just roll to credits. And that was intentional. It was meant to do that, but they actually got so many complaints. So many people ringing the BBC, so many people saying, is he alright? What happened? Is everything going okay? That after the 9 o'clock news, after the next news segment, they had to go live with Paul Daniels again for him to go, no, actually I am alright guys, don't worry, it's fine, it was just a trick, don't worry. So yeah, that's a very, very interesting thing, that the amount of people that actually rang up and complained about that, because I have seen it. It is one of those moments where it just cuts out. Like, I'd imagine when Tommy Cooper died on stage, for instance, the curtains would have just closed. It's that kind of feel to it, that something's definitely gone wrong. And whether it was intentional, obviously it was intentional, but I can see why people were a bit, ooh, and it shook people up a bit. So that's one of the most controversial things that he ever did. So Paul and Debbie together, Paul Daniels and the lovely Debbie McGee, we should say. Apparently they appeared on multiple TV shows straight after their success. So obviously 1994 was the end of their illustrious television career with the Paul Daniels Magic Show. But then from that, in 2001, I believe, they did Louis Theroux Meets, where Louis Theroux went around and met loads of interesting people. So Louis Theroux did go and live with Paul Daniels and Debbie McGee for, I think it was like a week or something, and actually looked into how they act together and stuff. It was quite an interesting thing. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, because there's a big Louis Theroux thing on Netflix. I've watched it. It's really interesting. It's really good. He also, Paul Daniels also was featured on the Ali G show. He went in and was interviewed on the Ali G show by Mrs. Merton, and he actually, and apparently he went on and dressed as Ali G. So he found out I can't imagine it either. Like this 55-year-old, 60-year-old man just coming on wearing like the proper tracksuits and the chain and everything, which is quite funny. They did a reality TV show called The Farm. They did X Factor Battle of the Stars, where they were voted out the first week, apparently. They did Wife Swap, Strictly Come Dancing, where Paul Daniels was voted off in the second week, amongst loads of others. And he performed with his son Martin Daniels on Foolers, which is one of the things where most of us, most younger generations will know. I was never around. I'm too young to have seen the Paul Daniels Magic Show properly in its prime. But obviously, as a magician, you hear the name, and then watching Foolers and seeing Martin Daniels come out and do Foolers, it was like, hey, and then Paul Daniels was in the audience and did this. Yeah, it was wonderful. So it was really, really important, I think, for magic history and everything else as well, for Paul Daniels to be on that show and to fool Penn and Teller. So yeah, it was really interesting. And in 2013, Paul and Debbie toured a show called Their First Farewell Tour, which I thought was quite a funny name. And then it was swiftly followed by a show called Back Again Despite Popular Demand, which was their second show a year later. And obviously Paul Daniels unfortunately died in 2016 in March from a brain tumour. He was diagnosed in the February beforehand, so he only had a month after being diagnosed. The doctors thought it might be pneumonia, and then they did proper tests and found out that he had a brain tumour. He died at age 77 as one of the most beloved entertainers in the UK today, and is still loved by lots and lots of people around the world. You can look at me on YouTube. I know he did a thing before he died for magicians called Bravura, which you can get from Louis D'Amatos, and it's a 4 DVD set detailing everything that Paul Daniels has ever done regarding magic, talking about tricks, talking about how he puts an act together, talking about him working with television and loads of other bits and pieces. It's an amazing DVD set. So if you want to get it's expensive. I think it's like £120, something like that. But it details everything you ever need to know about the man, about the incredible man that is Paul Daniels. So yeah, go and check that out. And obviously definitely go and look at YouTube videos and stuff like that. He was incredible. And one of his most famous tricks was, of course, the chop cup, which is the ball, cup, ball. Where's the ball? There's on chop in, and it's amazing. So definitely go and look at that. Okay, now we're going to try and talk. I have tried to do a thing as well of talking about the history of certain magic tricks, where certain magic tricks have come from, and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be pretty problematic because obviously magic tricks have different ways of forming and different things of different historical backgrounds and everything like that. So I thought this week I would try and talk about levitation. I thought it'd be a lot easier to talk about levitation than it is, but apparently it's quite difficult to track down the originators of the levitation illusion and try and find out more about it. Apparently in 1902 we have a man called Servace Leroy who performed the Azra levitation. Now the Azra, for those that are unaware, is where a woman is, it's always a woman, I don't know why, it's just and ends up being a woman, is lying on a little platform here. So this is the woman, brilliant, amazing, and she rises with the joy. So she's covered with a cloth, completely covered with a cloth, and then she rises up in the air, comes back down again, and when she comes back down again, you whip the cloth away, and the woman has vanished. And that's known as an Azra levitation. So he's the first man to create Azra, Asrah. So yeah, the Azra levitation. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. You can see a more up-to-date version of this, which was performed by Darcy Oakes, who was on Britain's Got Talent a few years ago now. He did a stage show, and he had his assistant rise up in the air, covered by the cloth, and then he levitated as well, and then he reached down, and while they were levitating, grabbed the cloth and pulled it apart, and they were gone. It's an amazing levitation. Obviously, there's many different ways of how it could work. So, one of them would be, like a wire sort of base thing, and they slide out. There's loads of different ways. But yeah, then we move on to the magician Henry Keller. I'm pretty sure that's right. He performed a version with his assistant. He introduces a Hindu princess. So he would levitate her, and he'd get a hoop and pass the hoop all the way around it to show that there was nothing. Holding her up, no wires, no strings, no nothing like that. This is an interesting one. It uses what's known as a gooseneck. So the gooseneck principle is, it's quite hard to explain. So you've got a kind of like a hook here, and it kind of goes like that. So it's kind of like that. So when the ring goes over this way, as long as it's big enough, you can go like that, and it'll catch in the gooseneck. So then you can pull it that way, and then pull it that way again, and it'll come out. It's a really interesting way to do a levitation, because how this is working is a big bar in the back. The Breaking the Magician's Code talked about a version of this. You use the forklift truck, which is just ridiculous. But it was a way of doing it. Breaking the magician's code again is another way of finding out how all these cool and awesome things are done. But I can only talk about what I know of and what I've figured out. So yes, but the gooseneck principle is a really interesting one because it allows you to show there's no wires, which obviously back in the day, because this was done in I think it was 1930 or 1920s, 1930s, something like that. So yeah, it was. It's been written that this levitation was this levitation was a marvel of the 20th century and the crowning achievement of Keller's long and brilliant career. So, considering that this is the best thing this man has ever done, it's an incredible illusion. It's wonderful. Obviously, nowadays we have ways of being able to do it with wires if we wanted to, where we could still do rings and all this kind of cool madness. But back in the day, that is an incredible thing to be able to perform, to levitate someone and show that there was no wires or anything going on. So yeah, well done to Mr. Keller for doing that. It's incredible. And our most up-to-date levitation that we should talk about is of course David Copperfield's flying. David Copperfield's flying illusion is a masterpiece in levitation. It's all computerized and everything wonderfully. It's incredibly done. Apparently, it is also a patented magic effect. So you can't do it. You can't rip it off. You're not allowed to. It is unique enough to be something that has been patented. So yeah, I'm pretty sure if you looked, you can find the public patent. I'm pretty sure that no one really knows how it's done properly, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure that David's kept that secret to himself, and I would too if I really tried. So there's our party tricks done for the day. I really hope you enjoyed it, and let's have some fun. Have a great week, guys. Have fun. Let's go.